Everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamer Dad channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I want to try my best to be as respectful as possible in this video. One of the biggest challenges of making content is you really have to balance the way you present your information in order to try to be fair to two of the three proxies that are engaged in the making of video games. Number one is the gamers. The gamers are the customers, and we know the rule. The customers are never wrong. I disagree with that rule though, for many reasons. I've seen some customers basically treat people who serve them like trash. I mean, I used to work in fast food and I saw it firsthand. So the customer is not always right, but for the most part, even as a service person, you really have to give your customer the benefit of the doubt. So that's one area. The next side is the developers that are working on the game. You also want to be fair to the developers because development is in different phases and follows different paradigms. Now, example, the developers say on this scene, you have level designers, level developers, all kinds of different people who did different things to make this particular scene where my character is running on come to reality. If one team has completed their work while another team is trying to finish up, and at the end of the day, they miss something, maybe team B that's kind of working on, say, these little mile markers, the map markers, miss out on something, or maybe there's some wall or some structure that's causing a glitch or a bug, it's something where it could affect even the team who, in their minds, had already finished their work. And as a whole, many times in gaming, in our discussions, we blame the developers as a whole for all of this. And so this is a very challenging part. So these are two of the proxies. The third proxy, I don't give a hoot much about, and that's basically the corporate company or the publisher, because many times the publisher is mostly concerned about being profitable for their business. This is the inherent nature of a business. And so it's very hard to kind of address these two proxies that are very important, and then also deal with the third proxy, who is kind of, in a sense, as a publisher, the most important, but at the same time kind of we have a lot of animosity in the way that, we depict, or the way that we think or perceive that they're actually treating the game. All that to say that there is something that that went down on Twitter just the other day. I wanted to go ahead and highlight it in this video because I feel like it's very important. So a content creator pretty much said something regarding the devs, and a producer for The Division replied and said, "I'm the dev team. So if you want to address anything regarding the devs, address it to me." And the conversation went really interesting, but this producer actually said that they basically made the call to delay the content that was coming in February. So this was very interesting to me. Now, the conversation went all kinds of different ways. You can probably go on Twitter and find out what's going on. But I thought the most important thing anyways for, us in this community is the fact that there are people who are able to make such calls. And these kinds of calls are out of the hands of the developers. And so this is something that helps us to recognize that your VFX person, or your level design person, or your person that's designing game mechanics somewhere, or your AI developer or whatever, these decisions are not in their hands. So even if they may want to go ahead and make your favorite gun very powerful, there is somebody in many cases that will, make the final call. Not saying that they're not able to contribute to the project. They just have to be able to make sure that they design the game based on the vision of the creative directors and the producers in terms of the way the game is supposed to flow. You as an individual developer, you're not going to develop your own, paradigm when the entirety of the game requires for you to follow the dream and the vision that's been laid out. Because if the game fails or flops or bombs, there is somebody that's the captain of the ship that's going to take the blame, and pretty much, their job might be on the line. So you, as a developer, junior or senior developer, you do your job and make sure that you are following exactly what it is that the vision of the entire project is. So right now, the vision of the project is that it is not ready for release. Hence, it was delayed. And so I think that, in my opinion, was a very succinct, very clear explanation. But it still leaves me with questions. And the question is, why? Why did the content get delayed? And I'm not asking in kind of a sense of, well, why? Why? Why is the content delayed? No. We have other games to play. I mean, I have other games to play. As much as it kind of pains me that I'm not playing The Division as I used to, because there's nothing really here to do much, I still put myself in a situation and I ask, so what could be the hiccup? Now, in my mind, I have potential answers. I've always been following this game, and that conversation, even though I probably would not have brought it up in any of my videos, the one that happened on Twitter between, the producer and this content creator, because there was something worth learning and worth examining, I decided to take a look at it. Right now, I think the team at Ubisoft Massive has been allocated to the projects that they're working on. And this is exactly where I said these 3 proxies are very critical. 2 of them I pretty much care a lot about, while the other one, to me, just sometimes seems like a boss character, in my opinion. So here's the thing. Avatar. Developers have already been allocated to that project. Potentially even more developers were moved to that project. And Star Wars, maybe right now they're moving developers around to even get that whole team going. And whoever is left is probably allocated to some other project within the studio, maybe a Division 3, maybe another game. And then they already have how many developers that they wanted to allocate to the Division 2. And from this number, it makes a whole lot of sense to say maybe this team is probably in a position where they could not finish the work in time before even Christmas break could come around or whatever it is. Now, I see a lot of the sentiment within the Division 2 community where people are saying they need to allocate more resources to the Division 2. And the truth is, from a logical side, pro gamer side, it makes sense that developers be allocated to the Division 2 project so that the gamers are able to get their content and the developers are able to deliver the content in the time that they, intend or desire to, so that they're not just sitting on this new content forever. It's terrible to have your content not get out and then you can move on to another fun project or do something else. But here's the thing. Proxy number 3, whose inherent nature is being profitable, is more than likely not going to allocate these resources to the Division game, because right now we're at the back burner and the Division 2 is not really a profitable franchise, or in my opinion doesn't seem as profitable currently. I'm not saying the Division is not profitable in general, but currently an Avatar game polished, finished, and completed and delivered on the due date or around the season that it needs to be, released, is more profitable than the Division 2. So proxy number 3, Ubisoft corporate, or whoever is making the decision there, will have to make, basically decisions that is more profitable for the company. This is in my opinion anyways, where we find ourselves many times. And we talk about this all the time on this channel because this is just the reality. You can't get away from the way these, agencies work. And so we, the gamers, are the ones that usually find ourselves on pretty much the butt end of a lot of these issues. And so to me, I think right now we're in a position where once we come to understand exactly, how these things work, I think it will really give us a very solid perspective as to how we address a lot of games like these. Also, I think it will give us a very different perspective on how we address, the developers and how we give feedback. I think this is where the conversations actually need to start from. How do we give feedback that is able to influence the games that we enjoy playing from now henceforth, especially from a studio where we actually have an open line of communication? See, that's a very, very important question that I don't think a lot of us, have asked in the just in the last few years. I think what's happened is, because of the past popularity of the channels that always yell at the devs, it just somewhat drowned out the reasonable conversations that can happen between the players and the developers. And yes, sometimes we, the players, we give all of these wonderful ideas, but they never get implemented. So it feels like it's, it makes no sense to even keep giving ideas or giving feedback. But here's the thing. Corporate is that proxy that has to basically make decisions that are profitable for corporate, and developers. Sometimes they may love our ideas or they may want to implement our ideas, but if they do not get the go ahead or if they don't have the opportunity, then there is no way that they can actually do anything like that. So this is basically the stalemate of gaming right now and the stalemate of the Division 2. At any rate, you can comment regarding what it is that you think about all of this. And I think this conversation that took place on Twitter really did expose all of what it is that this whole thing is about, because it's quite challenging to put yourself in a situation where, if you kind of think about it, right? everyone has pretty much what it is they would love to see from the game. There are multiple wonderful ideas, but at the same time, if these ideas are not necessarily profitable, I don't think the publisher is going to pursue them. Nonetheless, I think even still, producers, senior developers also have a voice and have a say as well. I'm not saying that they're puppets. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the developers are puppets and they just have to do everything that the corporate says. No, corporate in many cases will have to defer to them because they're the ones on the ground. And so a lot of the developers are able to be, to make changes, to be able to make big suggestions, and are able to pretty much, throw things out there and say, hey, we believe we can do this. But at the same time, it's based on, the fact that corporate is still willing to work with them in that capacity. In fact, one of the hypotheses that's been put out there is it appeared Ubisoft wanted to just basically leave the Division 2 where it was and move on to another project. But within the studio, some of the senior developers and senior management said, hey, we think we can continue to support this game to an extent, and we think it's going to be beneficial. And they went ahead and, basically pitched that to Ubisoft, and potentially Ubisoft, corporate, and people who are at the top making decisions allowed for them to be able to continue it. I don't know how true this is, but it seemed like that's pretty much what was going down, especially from when they sent us when they put that little thing on Twitter saying, guys, from what you saw, we wanted to end the game, but we decided that we're going to, bring out more content. And so I think this was probably a decision-making process that went back and forth between those on the higher ups, close to the corporate side, and then those closer to the developer side. Whew, so much that you have to kind of consider in all of this. But I wanted to go ahead and just share my thoughts on this. I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section. Talk to me. Thanks for listening and watching. Peace out.